Okay, hello from the UK to everyone in Mexico. My name is Ian Ibbotson, and Elliot has asked me to give a short presentation on the work we've been doing on Filtered Alert Hub. Only this time, instead of talking about the technical details of the implementation, talk about how it's easy for people wanting to take the software and set up their own Filtered Alert Hub. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I would really have loved to be, but I've already travelled a lot this year and it just didn't seem fair to travel again. For what it's worth, I think you guys have got a much better deal. I don't know if you can see, but it's pretty miserable in the UK at the moment. It's pretty horrible, so I think I'd rather be where you are, to be honest. So, Capital Implementation Workshop. Quick recap then about the Filtered Alert Hub software. It's split into three components really. Feed Facade is a tool which takes pull-based RSS and Atom feeds, any pull-based feed really, and turns it into an event stream, which is a little bit easier to work with modern software idioms, particularly with systems like the next component, the CAP aggregator, which likes to have push-based notifications of things happening. So as we transition into maybe a more reactive software environment with push-based notifications, Feed Facade presents us with an alternate way of using these pull-based feeds that makes them look more reactive and event-based. Capculator is a system which takes feeds of events and filters them, applies rules, tries to match them. And ultimately what Cap Aggregator is really is some middleware that sits in between event publishers and event consumers, because the way that CAP publishers like to work isn't always the most convenient way for people who want to consume CAP, because publishers tend to be quite thematic, so you might have weather-based alerts or public safety-based alerts, but all that really matters for me in this place is I need to stay inside because there's an active shooter, or I need to stay inside, or I need to get out of the area because there's about to be a dam burst its banks. And so Cap Aggregator is some middleware that sits in between this big sea of people who are publishing alerts and the big sea of people who are looking to consume alerts. And it turns that passive publication into a very active event stream, which is quite suitable for doing things like pushing alerts to mobile phones and the kind of apps that we want to produce today. There are then this kind of third family of applications, which are applications which will subscribe to the events being published by the aggregator. So the thing that says, where you are right now, there's this going on. And we've got things like an Elasticsearch index that make it easy to build front-end apps, reactive front-end apps on top of this data. We've got Apache Kafka feeds in development, RabbitMQ feeds, MQTT feeds. So there's a whole range of adapters, if you like, after that. The thing I'm actually talking about today is the CAP Appliance, though. They don't let me name things generally, and this is why. CAP Appliance is essentially an Amazon Web Services AMI, a machine image, and it contains all the software in a way that you can just stand up one of these systems and make it work for you without any knowledge of the software, really. You need a little bit of knowledge of how AWS works, but compared to the software knowledge, it's reasonably straightforward, and hopefully I'm going to show you that today. The document I'm going to do this is this guide. This link will work, but I'll attach it to the presentation in a way that's easier to click. Let's open that in a new tab. So here's the document. Okay, so hopefully your CAP aggregator in 10 minutes. Let me just, I'm going to set my timer going, just because, you know. Two things. One or two places in this demonstration we have to wait for AWS to spin up a machine. I'm likely to pause the video just so you aren't left looking at a blank screen. This is boring enough already. You don't want to be sat looking at a screen doing nothing. So that's what's happening then. I'm also going to set up an S3 feed, which isn't necessarily important for this demo, but if you're publishing emergency alerts, it turns out that publishing RSS to a really resilient store like S3 is still a really good belt and braces way of checking what's been published and making it available. So we're going to do that as well. In fact, the installation guide starts off by telling you how to set up an S3 bucket for publishing your feed. So Here's my AWS console, and I'm going to go services, S3. I'm going to create a bucket, and my bucket is cap test 005. I've been doing a lot of testing. I click on next. I don't need to change anything on the next screen, the configure options screen. On the permission screen, I do need to change something. The whole point of using S3 for this is that it's world readable. We like to leverage S3's quite clever infrastructure here. So I'm going to turn off, pardon me, blocking all public access, which will allow this bucket to be public. It won't make the bucket public, but it will allow it to be public. Click on next, review. I'm very happy with all that. Click on create bucket. Okay, we've got a bucket called captest005. I'm just going to click on that, and I've got permissions. As I said, I'm not preventing this bucket from being public, but I'm not letting it be public either, and in order to make it public I have to edit the bucket policy. If I go back to the setup notes, you can just grab this stanza. This is the policy that will make a bucket world readable, which is actually what we want in this case. And paste that in there. And the thing that we need to do to make this work is to change the template bucket name with the actual bucket name, which is cap test 005. Should I just up the font size? Okay, and I can save that. Okay, and then I get a warning saying this bucket has public access, which is what we want. We only want it to be readable publicly. That's good. In order for the AWS EC2 instance that we're about to set up to write into this bucket, I need to set up some kind of a trust relationship, and there are lots of ways to do that, but by far the easiest one is to set up a role. So I go services, IAM. So this is the AWS identity management system, and I can go into roles. I'm going to create a new role. This is a role which is for EC2. I want to allow one of my EC2 instances to do something, and the policy I want to give it is an S3 policy, and it's this one, Amazon S3 full access. I'm not going to create any tags. Obviously in your production systems, if you've got other AWS infrastructure, you might want to be more specific and more granular about this. For this demo, it doesn't really matter. The role name is going to be cap demo EC2 S3. Create role. Okay, here's the role I've just created. So going back to our document. Okay, right. Time to set up a machine. I'm going to go into my EC2 console. No running instances currently. I'm going to launch an instance. Click on Community AMIs and search for cap Appliance. Now, cap Appliance, there are two versions currently published, 1.1, 1.2. As we make bug fixes, add features, those numbers will go up. You should be very safe to choose 1.x. So if there's a 1.5, grab the 1.5 version. They'll be backwards compatible. If we produce a 2 something, that probably means we've made some pretty serious changes. Look out for some information about what we've changed. The other thing is these images are only published on US East 1 and EU West 1 currently. If you want to work in a different AWS region and you can't see these images, drop me a line on one of the contact details I'll give you at the end, and I can make sure that these images appear in your region. It's just laziness on my part that hasn't published them globally on AWS. Anyway, we're going to go with Cap Appliance all-in-one. The reason it's called all-in-one is eventually we're probably going to want to publish some images that let you have your database on a different host so that you can easily do upgrades, possibly put your Rabbit on a different host. This is the all-in-one image. It's got everything you need, so it makes it super easy to set up. You probably don't want to run a production system off one of these images. You could do, but it's not the easiest way to do it. So you should talk to Elliot or I if you want to set up a production system and it be a little bit more nuanced. I'm going to set this up as an M5 large, and the reason is the default list of feeds is quite large, and it requires a reasonable amount of work to poll them all in real time. When you're setting up a system, you might be setting up a much smaller system for a smaller geographic region. You probably won't need an M5 large for that. You'll be able to get away with a smaller system. The system you choose depends on your requirements. That's the nice thing about AWS. I should also say the great thing about this demo is the cost of doing it. I'm going to destroy the machine when we're finished. Will be a few cents. So it's really great for just trying this stuff. But you know, there's no real overhead to it. M5 large, I can't find it now. I'm going to have to search for it in a second. Sorry. There we go. M5 large. It's got 2 cores and 8 gig of memory, so it's not a beast of a machine, but it's certainly enough for what we need. Let me just move my face. Next is configure instance details, and on this screen we can drop down the IAM role and we can choose our cap demo EC2 S3 role. So this role is the one that says, for this kind of instance, I want to be allowed to write into S3 buckets. This role is any S3 bucket. You could set up a much more granular role. Storage, by default we get 8 gig. That's not going to be enough for the 130 odd feeds that we're going to be polling and turning into our own subscriptions. So I'm going to go for 250. That's more than enough, but disk is cheap. Security groups, so this is HTTP access. Now if I just quickly go back to the notes, you'll see on this screen I talk about setting up access to RabbitMQ, setting up access to MQQT. If you want to be able to access these services, these push-based services from your other hosts, you'll need to set up firewall access for those protocols. For this demo, pardon me, the only thing I'm going to do is to set up HTTP. Okay, that's good. Review and launch, and that all looks good to me, so I'm going to click on launch. I need to give this a key pair so that I'll be able to connect to the machine later on and do maintenance on it. In fact, you should be able to use this appliance without ever connecting to it, but this is an important step. I do have access to that key, so I can click on launch instances. If I click on view instances, you can see that we've currently got an instance state pending and the instance is initializing. So this is one of those points where I'm just going to pause the video so you're not stood looking at a blank screen. I'm going to get a cup of tea and then I'll be back in a few minutes for me, but a few seconds for you. Okay? Okay, I'm back. I have tea. And you can see that our instance state is now running. We've got an IP address. This is good. So if I just quickly go back to the notes, launch an instance, and then the notes suggest that we go to http:// whatever our address is /feed facade /setup. So that's what I'm going to do. Feed facade /setup. So hopefully, yeah, here we go. This has been a change to the way that feed facading cat aggregator work. We used to have a default administrative account. Obviously that doesn't really square with having an AMI, because it would mean that whenever you started the system up, it would start with a password that I knew, and that's not good for you. So the instance now launches with no configuration, and you have to set this up. I'm going to set it up with a trivial password, but I'm not really concerned about that, because by the time you see this video, I will have destroyed this machine. I'm only going to keep it alive for the duration of this demo, and as I said, it will cost a few cents. So when you set this up, please think about your cyber security and set it up with some sensible defaults. For me, for the purposes of this demo, admin and another password, and I'll put in my email address. Okay. So what this has done is to bootstrap our feed facade system and set up a password. I'm not going to remember that password. You'll see that it comes with a default set of feeds. This is the list that Elliot maintains, and it's actually read in real time off Amazon S3 and bootstrapped into this system. So as Elliot changes that file, this list of sources will update. We have to go through a similar process with Cap Collator, or Cap Aggregator as it's now called. You must get used to that. So I'm just going to set up another tab here. Cap Aggregator / setup. This one's a little bit more involved. Similar. Admin and a password. An email address. I can set up some prefixes for the feed. You probably don't want that, but the important thing here is the AWS bucket name. So just to make sure that I remember it properly, let's go to our S3 console. Cap test 005. Again, the thing which is going to allow this instance to write into this bucket is the role that we set up when we set the machine up. We fill in some default URLs for the publishing of the RSS feeds. If you were setting up a production system, you would set up DNS and you would set up some proper host names, and you would edit that in here to make sure that, so for example, the demo system at demo.semweb.co is http://demo.semweb.co, and the static feeds directory needs to be updated as well. Hopefully I put that in the notes. I have, but it's difficult to read. Bear with me a second, sorry. I wanted to try and fit that to, there we go. Okay, so the static feeds directory should be /var/www/html/cap. /var www/html/cap. That's to marry up the aggregator with the default web server configuration on the EC2 instance. You don't necessarily need to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, I'm not going to save that. So in terms of the setup documents, we've done everything we need to do. Cap Aggregator doesn't come with a list of subscriptions. It does come with a list of source feeds, which is, they cover the planet. But in terms of the subscriptions you want to set up, you might not want the full set. I am going to have the full set. I'm going to log into Cap Aggregator, admin, and the password that I've used. Okay, not going to save that. So currently there are no subscriptions in the system, but I can go admin, load subscription list, and the default URL here is the default list of subscriptions that Elliot maintains. I'm going to click on sync, and I get this pop-up which is going to refresh now as it churns through this list of subscriptions. What Cap Aggregator is doing at this point is reading each of the subscriptions and building a geospatial index of the subscription areas that makes it really quick for us to filter the incoming stream of events and alerts to see whether they match the different subscriptions. So you can see it's going through about 47 milliseconds per subscription as it indexes them. It's indexing them at quite a reasonable degree of granularity, so happy to let that churn through. This should only take a few seconds, but I'm just going to pause the video so that you're not sat looking at a refreshing screen. Okay, so there we go, completed. 2,410 subscriptions now loaded and indexed. If I go back to the home page there, you can see these subscriptions now. Obviously, if I go to the unfiltered subscription, we don't have any alerts in the system at the moment, so that would be pretty pointless. We're not actually reading any feeds. In order to do that, we need to log on to Feed Facade, admin, and the password that I set. Now we've got our list of 117 source feeds. You'll see they're all set to enabled. Sorry, they're all not enabled, which means they're currently switched on. I can click on the toggle link and that will switch the feeds on one by one. Up in the admin menu, we've got enable all operating feeds, and this is basically, if you're running an aggregator, you might just want to switch on all the feeds that we think are legitimate and operating. The database contains some testing feeds and some which are not official yet. So enable all operating is basically the current state-of-the-art list of official feeds that we know work. Pardon me. It used to be the case that this operation turned everything on at once, and that really hit the AWS instance hard because we're turning on, maybe 100 feeds that have to be polled. In the last version, the 1.2 version, this changed. So I'm going to click this now, and basically what I'm asking the system to do is to drink from the fire hose. It's going to start polling all these feeds and publishing events. And if you think about it, if one of the feed has 20 events in it, that's 20 new events for the system to process. So I'm going to click that now. The reason that this has changed in 1.2 is we basically slowly start up. So we will take 10 feeds and activate them, and once they've started to activate, we'll activate the next block of 10. And this happens over the space of a few minutes, but it's not quite as harsh as it used to be in terms of hitting the EC2 instance all at once with 100 feeds to switch on. So we've clicked that. If I click restart now, reload restart, you'll see that the feed status has changed to active. And down here we've got a histogram which shows the status of the feed, and you can see that in the UTC hour 11 AM, we've had one successful poll of the feed, and that poll of feed has resulted in 19 new entries. And as we scroll down, so here we've got one successful poll that generated no new entries. When we come to the third feed, you can see that this feed actually has an error at the moment. We're not sure why. This section has changed in version 1.2. You can see that it tells us what the problem was. It was an I/O problem, and it was basically a certificate validation error. It was first seen on this date, last seen on this date, and every time we see this error now, the repeated count will go up. And we've added this because one of the problems with the previous display was the same error was repeating itself many, many times. It made the whole screen unreadable. So now what we've got is a system where we can just see the error, and if it's repeated a lot, we'll see this repeated count going up, and you can just see this is a one-off problem that happened months ago and it's not a problem anymore, versus this is a constant problem. This feed is permanently broken with a certificate error, for example. So I'm just going to scroll down this list and show some of the other feeds. So you can see requests starting to come in, and then over the day this histogram will fill, and you'll be able to see the hours at which new alerts come in, and the hours at which we get recurrent errors and recurrent problems, and when we get the most new entries. If I just reload this, this will now just poll basically. So you can see here we've got a feed. In the time since I started the feeds, we've tried to poll this 8 times, and we've never had a successful poll. We're just getting connect timed out. Something's obviously not right with that server. Whereas over here, this feed is fine. Yeah. So this is essentially what Feed Facade does. It turns a whole world full of static RSS feeds into an event feed that we can work with. If I go back over to Cap Aggregator then, if I go to the unfiltered feed, hopefully what's happened now is that as we've started to poll the feeds, they will be matched against subscriptions, and we'll get alerts ending up in a subscription that makes it easy for event consumers. So me sat here in Sheffield, I want all the public safety alerts, I want all the weather alerts, I just want to know what's relevant to me here. And that's what this is doing. You can see I'm using the unfiltered feed because it's easy to demonstrate, but you can see that this alert has matched some other subscriptions, so unfiltered, official high priority, and official public. Just trying to find some other interesting things. So here we've got an event that's been matched against the Danish subscriptions. It's official public as well. So, in essence, we've got a running system. What I could do, of course, is I could go to the Danish alert feed, and we can see that since we started the system up, we've got 27 new alerts. So obviously these are alerts that were already in the RSS feeds and already live for Denmark. So I'll go back to unfiltered. And basically, as we watch this now, we'll just see more and more alerts start flowing in. And you can pick the alert for your area, define a new one. The other thing we probably need to check on is our feed. So you can see that if I go to the S3 bucket, I've had a load of folders created for my subscription feeds. The feeds are broken down into subdirectories to make them easy to index. But if we go in here, okay, do a view source on that. View source. The alert is missing style sheet information, which is making it difficult for me to view. So that wasn't a very good demo. Sorry. But you can see the source XML there. In fact, what I could do, I could do a wget on that and just get the alert text. If I go back again, somewhere in here, the list is quite long and it gets truncated in this interface. I might be able to find the unfiltered folder. Now I need to page through them. Obviously there's a lot of feeds now, but this is where my S3 bucket of published feeds is. But for me, the more interesting thing, the more exciting thing is this view of feeds. What we've got here then, at this IP address, is a full cap appliance, and this is publishing RabbitMQ alerts and MQTT alerts. You can have this infrastructure on your own network if you like. You can allow your services to access it, and you've done this without any real knowledge of, or any necessary knowledge of, the underlying software components, which is quite nice. And as we upgrade this and we fix problems, you'll just be able to pull the later images down and get those updates without having to do a load of sysops work. That's what I wanted to show you, really. That's what we've been doing for the past few months anyway. I'm really happy to take questions. Hopefully I'm on a Hangouts line or some other electronic connection, and I'd love to hear your questions. Just to finish up, what's next? Pardon me. We've been working with Apache Kafka. There'll be some more Kafka adapters so that you can consume the event stream in a way that works nicely with Kafka. We might add some more front-end modules, more testing, more configuration. So as I said, we want, this is the all-in-one image. We want a version which separates out the database and the Rabbit to make it easier to upgrade the individual components. That's it. You can contact me by email me at this email address, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter, Ian Ibbo. My handle on most social media platforms is Ian Ibbo. Feel free to get in touch using whatever channel suits you. And if there's anything I can do to help you use this, please just holler. It's been a long road, but I think Elliot and I feel this software's really coming into its own now. It's starting to look like a solid platform to make it easier for event publishers and event consumers to both get the service that they need. So your questions are very welcome. Thank you very much.